This is Kristen Haley with the start of a glossary of common California government terms. This video podcast covers letters A and B. Now, it probably doesn't come as a surprise, but those working in and around California's state capital use a number of terms or lingo to describe aspects of the legislative and executive branch processes and branches of government. So I tried to put together a compilation of as many common phrases, words, and terms that I could come up with in the legislative and executive branches of state government. So the first one is two-year bill. This is when a bill that did not pass out of its house of origin before the specified deadline in the first year of the two-year legislative session and is therefore carried over to the second year of session. If the bill doesn't clear the second year deadline, January 31st, then the measure has officially failed passage and is dead for the rest of the two-year session. 12-day rule, the general rule for the number of calendar days the governor has to act on a bill, although it is extended if the 12th day falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday. 28.8 is the Senate rule that allows the Senate Appropriations Committee chair to waive a hearing and report a fiscal bill out of committee and to the floor because it is deemed that there's very little state fiscal impact for the bill. 29.10 or 2910 is the Senate rule that allows the Senate Rules Committee to refer a bill to a policy committee for a hearing if the bill has been substantially amended in their house or in the second house. 30-day rule is the rule, the number of calendar days the governor has to act on a bill sent to him at the end of session. 41st senator, while there are obviously 40 members of the Senate, due to the power of some staff in the upper house, there are a few of them who are viewed as being almost as powerful as the elected members of the California State Senate. 72-hour rule, the voters adopted Prop 54, which among other provisions requires a bill to be in print and in its final form for a minimum of 72 hours before either house can vote on it. 77.2 or 77.2 is the assembly rule that allows the speaker to refer a bill to a policy committee for a hearing if the bill has been substantially amended in that house or the other house. 81st member, while there are obviously 80 members of the state assembly, due to the power of some staff in the lower house, there are a few of them who are viewed as being almost as powerful as the elected members of the state assembly. A pages, this is the term often used to refer to the governor's budget summary, which are the governor's budget highlights. Absence, when a legislator is not in attendance at an official legislative proceeding. Absent member is a legislator who is missing from a committee hearing or floor session. Abstain is when a legislator chooses not to cast an aye vote or a no vote on a motion or measure. Across the desk, bills when introduced and amendments to bills are placed across the desk, which is an official act of introducing bills or making amendments to existing measures. An act is another word for a statute, such as the Budget Act. Add is making an addition to an existing bill, statute, or regulation. Adjourn or adjournment is when a meeting or session concludes. Adjournment sine die is November 30th of the even-numbered year when the two-year legislative session concludes for the final time pursuant to the state constitution. Adjourn in memory or an adjournment in memory or an AIM is when the assembly or the Senate adjourns a floor session and expresses its remorse for the death of a constituent or other individual. Adopt, amendments to legislative measures are approved by a committee or on the floor. Advocate is another term for a lobbyist. AG opinion or Attorney General opinion is an official written decision issued by the opinions unit on behalf of the California Attorney General. Agenda is the order of business for a committee of the legislature. ALJ is an administrative law judge who conducts administrative hearings in California. Alternative member or alternate member is an individual who sits on a committee, board, or commission and can participate in discussion and debate, but who does not vote unless they're taking the place of the individual for whom they serve as an alternate member. Amend is making a change to an existing bill, statute, or regulation. Amendment is a change to a legislative measure or motion. Analysis, a committee or floor analysis is done for each legislative measure being considered, which explains what the measure would do, and generally arguments for or against the measure. APA is the Administrative Procedure Act, which is contained in the California Government Code. It provides procedural rules for executive branch agencies to follow when they adopt regulations, unless that agency or rulemaking is specifically exempted by statute. Appeal is the term used to object or challenge a ruling of a committee chair or presiding officer. Appeal the ruling of the chair, a procedural motion when a legislator objects to the ruling of the committee chair or presiding officer on the floor. Appointment, the governor appoints certain positions to the executive branch of state government. Apportionment is the establishment of legislative districts. Appropriation, an appropriation is an amount of money, an authorization for an appropriation by a state agency or department to make expenditures for a specified purpose. An appropriation schedule is the detail of an appropriation showing where the appropriations are made to each program. An appropriation bill is a bill that contains language that appropriates funds for expenditures by the state. Appropriations limit, or the SAL, state appropriations limit, or the GAN limit, is the constitutional limitation on the maximum amount of tax proceeds that state or local governments may appropriate in a fiscal year. The amount is based on 1986-87 fiscal year appropriations and is adjusted annually. Approved by the legislature or approved by the governor when the legislature passes a measure or the governor signs a bill. Assembly is the lower house of the California legislature, which is comprised of 80 members elected for 2-year terms. Assembly member is a member of the lower house or state assembly of the California legislature. Assembly rules are the rules adopted by the assembly to govern its internal matters. Augmentation is an increase in an appropriation that's been previously made. Author, in California's legislature, the legislator whose name is on the bill is the author of the bill. Author amendments, these are amendments made to a measure by the author of the measure, either in committee or on the floor. Author-sponsored bill is a bill, the bill is the idea of the author, who is the official sponsor of the bill. Authorized position in the salaries and wages publication is part of the budget. It is the past year's total authorized positions in state government. An aye vote is a positive or affirmative vote or a vote in favor of a measure or motion. Backed bill. This bill is ready for introduction because it has a backing, formerly called a jacket, that shows who the author is. Balanced budget requirement. Under California's Constitution, the governor must propose a balanced budget by January 10, and the legislature must pass a balanced budget by June 15. Baseline budget or workload budget. This is the budget year cost of currently authorized services, according to the Department of Finance, that's been adjusted for changes in enrollment, caseload, population, statutory COLAs, chaptered legislation, one-time expenditures, full year costs of partial year programs, costs incurred pursuant to constitutional or statutory requirements and federal mandates, as well as court-ordered mandates, state employee merit salary adjustments, and state agency operating expense adjustments. Batching in the assembly, it's a procedural motion that's made to approve a series of measures that both political parties agree can be passed by a single vote. It's usually for measures that do not have any registered opposition. It's similar to the Senate's special consent. BCP is a budget change proposal. This is an acronym for the term budget change proposal, which is a document prepared by a state agency and the Department of Finance to propose and document budget changes to maintain the existing level of service or to change the level of service or to propose new program activities not currently authorized or to eliminate existing programs. Bicameral legislature or bicameral is a two-house legislature. Like the US Congress and 49 states, including California, Nebraska is the only unicameral state legislature in the US. Biennium is another term for the two-year legislative session. Big Three is the term that refers to the Assembly Speaker, Senate President pro tempore, and the governor, and is often used to describe their negotiating sessions. Bill is a legislative measure to add, amend, or repeal a statute in California. Bill analysis, a floor or committee analysis done of a bill. Bill digest is another term for the Legislative Council's digest of a measure. Bill signing message, a statement made by the governor when signing a bill. The term binding a future legislature, the courts have explained that a current legislature cannot take any action that would bind or prevent a future legislature from taking a different action. Bipartisan is something of a nature that enjoys support from both political parties. Blue pencil or the line item veto is the term used to refer to the governor's ability to line item veto items of appropriation in the budget bill or an appropriation bill. Bond measure is a bill to enact a revenue bond or a general obligation bond to incur debt by the state. Budget, the state budget includes proposed expenditures of state monies for the next fiscal year. The Budget Act, this is the adopted budget bill after it has been enacted into law. Budget bill is the annual bill required by the Constitution that sets forth the spending proposal for the next fiscal year, containing the budget submitted to the legislature by the governor. The budget bill junior can be one or more bills that make adjustments to the annual budget bill. The plural, by the way, is budget bills junior. Budget stabilization account, or the BSA. This is the rainy day fund used by the legislature due to the enactment of Prop 2 by the voters on the 2014 ballot. A budget year versus fiscal year. The fiscal year addressed by a proposed budget beginning July 1 and ending June 30th. It's the 12-month period on which the state budget is planned. And the federal fiscal year note begins October 1 and ends September 30th of the following year. Budget year plus one or budget year plus two, etc. This refers to the fiscal year following the upcoming fiscal year that begins July 1. For example, the 2022-23 budget year begins July 1, 2022. The budget year plus one begins July 1, 2023. Business day are the working days of the week, excluding weekends as well as holidays.